Hey everyone, I'm Colt. Welcome to another episode of Need More Sports, where we find ourselves always needing more of the things that we love. Today we'll be sitting down with Coach Cory Krites. Good evening, Coach. Thank you for taking the time to do this interview with me.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
Now, I understand that you've been coaching for nearly 10 years, in everything from wrestling to softball, with your recent rec softball team placing 4th overall in the Dixie Youth World Series. How did you initially get into coaching?
Honestly, it started when we lived in Indiana and they were in the process of starting up a rec softball league in the town that we lived in. And they had about 50 girls sign up to play, with my oldest being one of them, and they only had two coaches. So I stepped up at that point, to coach a T-ball team and have been coaching ever since.
I feel like that's a really common outcome for most of the coaches in youth sports nowadays. How do you approach coaching to support athletic development for your players?
It really depends on the level of the age, sorry, the level of their athleticism already coming into, really dependent on their age, which will then curtail, how much speed and conditioning you have to do in addition to the fundamentals of the game you're coaching.
That makes sense. I myself, my daughter is genuinely learning how to run. We're working on fast feet, so I completely understand that. Since I've got that, I've got a quote here from you. Coaching is more than the numbers in the win loss column. It's about helping develop young women into future contributing members of society. How does your coaching contribute to young athletes' personal development?
There is a lot of failure that you have to deal with in the game of softball. If you look at it from a percentages point of view, a successful batter in softball has a batting average of in between about 2 and 300. So getting a hit 2 out of 10 times up at bat. Now, if you think of that in school terms, at 20%, you're failing. So you really have to
Right.
deal with failure almost on a daily basis. So really trying to help coach the girls, that mental resilience and not letting every pitch that they encounter or every play that they encounter affect their future, whether that be the next play or literally their future in life, not getting hung up on every mistake they make.
I love that. Building up their, like you said, mental fortitude, their character, just making them better people overall. What would be an example of a time this season when you prioritize character or teamwork over a game result?
There's time limits for our games. So you can play a game and we only have an hour and a half. And I've seen some teams, they'll bat that entire hour and a half and the other team just stands out in the field the whole time.
Of course.
That is not so like from my coaching point of view and the gentlemen I coach with, very much under the philosophy of like we're not only out there to develop our girls, but we're also out there to develop all of the girls. Well, you can't develop the other girls if you just have your girls bat for an hour and a half and the other team just never gets to play the game
Exactly.
because either like their pitcher can't throw strikes or we're just a good hitting team and they can't get the out. So there are times where you have to teach kind of the humility to the girls as well. And a way you can do that in softball is once you're up enough, and that's a very arbitrary term, but it's
Right.
dependent on the situation. Once you're up enough, you can have your girls step off the bag early, which is illegal in softball to step off before the pitcher releases a pitch and then they're out as a way to assist the other team in giving their players a chance to come off the field and work on what their coaches want to work on.
Awesome. Yeah, I like that. And you gave me the perfect segue for the next thing I'm about to share. Obviously, you just said that we'll step off the bag. So what happened here?
So in this instance, it was kind of two things. It was we had just had our first loss to a team from Florida. So we were already in the losers bracket, and the girls, were kind of down coming off of a loss.
Right.
And this was kind of a two-pronged approach from me as the coach. It was one, it was a confidence rebuilder coming off of that loss. Their bats were hot. I didn't want to ruin, the momentum that they had. Let let them continue that momentum and hopefully carry it on into the next game. But also, we were getting short on two of our pitchers' inning counts. So if we could mathematically eliminate them after the third inning, which is what we ended up doing, uh, I was able to save our ace pitcher 2 innings so she could pitch the next day and hopefully get us into that championship game.
Okay. That makes much more sense. Seeing the score without any context just does not appear great, but with an explanation like that, totally makes sense. This is Colt with Need More Sports. We have Coach Cory Krites with us, having a word about his coaching, as well as how some of the leagues he participates in are a wee bit different. Recently, since you've come back from your World Series tour, I noticed that quite a few girls from your rec ball team have been added to your travel team's roster. How do you view the level of competition in rec versus travel ball?
The biggest difference that I see is most of your pitchers, once they start playing travel ball, they stay in travel ball and don't necessarily play rec ball because it's just a lot of wear and tear on their arms. So that's the biggest difference that you see between the sport, between the two levels of competition, if you will, is the pitching that you will face in between rec and travel. But I will say, having gone to the World Series with this last rec team, the competition that we saw throughout the entire process from our districts to state to the actual World Series down in Louisiana far exceeded what I have seen over the last just 2.5 years that I've been coaching just softball. In the travel ball realm, what we saw in rec was actually more competitive than what we saw in travel ball.
That's really cool to hear, considering the view is normally the exact opposite of that. At least that's the way parents are perceiving it. What are your thoughts on the idea that travel ball is the only path to exposure or high level experience for young athletes?
I don't know of a travel tournament that has over, I'd have to look up the number again, but I heard during one of the softball Little League World Series games, they were averaging like, I want to say 1.2 million viewers.
Wow.
A travel ball doesn't get that kind of viewership.
No. No, they do not. We've noticed that you can get pretty intense
Mhm.
on the field. Third base coaches are known to be loud, and you fit the bill pretty well. Now, when I
Mhm.
look at this photo, I see a coach who cares more about the kids than he does the scoreboard. Where does this passion for coaching come from?
How bad, and it wasn't just me, the other coaches as well, like how bad we wanted it for the girls. And man, where that comes from, like I honestly don't know. I guess, the old adage, like once you have kids, specifically once you have girls, it's going to change you. And it definitely has. Like coaching has calmed me down. And some people listening to this that know me will laugh when they hear me say that, but it truly has. It was really in the moment. It was like, man, what did I do wrong to as a coach to not enable these girls to go one more game, which would have been the championship game.
Oh man, that is a gut punch for sure. But that's all I've got for you today. And that's all I got for the viewers and listeners out there. Thanks for listening to another episode of Need More Sports. Huge thank you to Coach Krites for an amazing interview. Congrats again on taking fourth this year in Dixie Youth World Series. I'm sure you'll be hunting for first next year.
Definitely will be. Thanks for having me.
Thank you again for stopping in. I'm Colton. Don't forget, if you enjoyed the show, pay it forward, go out there, be the reason somebody smiles today. We'll see you next time.